judge a book by the cover, they say, whoever they are, and they're wrong. Because in this hobby, I think I probably judge more books by their cover than in anything else. And the book that I'm going to talk about today, I'm so glad I did judge by its cover. So this is wow, where do I start? It's a post-apocalyptic world. Well, it's Earth in the future, where AI has taken over. Sounds familiar? Well, not quite as yet. But they then built these worlds and, more importantly, these sort of machine-like gods that have then taken over the world. And the humans are just left sort of scavenging around the world in this sort of feudal system, living under these incredibly powerful machine gods. The system itself, it uses a d20 to roll over. It's got very familiar stats, so that's always a massive plus. But then when I was looking through it, it also can be solo, co-op, or run as a traditional Games Master V players. Not V players, but you know what I mean. So let's actually just show you TTRPG, and I'll show you my mind and how I got there. So here we have the front page on TTRPG, and it basically shows best-selling titles. And in there is this, which is Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse. So I clicked on it. I went, oh, obviously you can see that I bought it. By Black Oak Entertainment. Looked at the cover. I thought this sounds like something that I should probably pick up. Looks good. It's available PDF, softcover, hardcover. So I took a massive punt on the hardcover and PDF because it's the same price. PDF for free is always great. 108 pages, OSR. So I read through the thing. So it's a dark fantasy, science fiction, tabletop role-playing game, post-apocalyptic. Lots and lots of ticks, quick character creation, attributes, feats, things like that. You know, familiar mechanics, D20, adding modifier, trying to achieve a target number. So then I've got detailed solo and Games Master's rules, and I've been playing this a little bit each night, just working out the solo rules, and I think these could be some of the best of solo rules, and I think I could probably adapt it for other games too. That's my plan for the weekend. See if I can just jump it into sort of other OSR things, because I think it will work. It's got its spellcasting and all the explanation rules for not quite hex crawl. This is grid crawl. It does come with its own grid as well, and obviously got light. It rules light. It is, and there's a video here that you could watch. I didn't. I just pulled the plug and bought it. And if you're going to do the same based on my review, or just judging it on the cover, please do consider using my affiliate link, because things like this, I do buy out my own money, and then I basically just turn it back into more videos, more reviews for the channel. But more importantly, I've really started enjoying supporting, and I say smaller creators, because I know nothing about, well, I do know a little bit about Alex, because I shared this on my weekly and he messaged me to say thank you. And he joined my Discord last night at time of recording, but I don't speak to creators before I get into reviews. So let me just jump out. So if you are going to use it, please do consider using my affiliate link so I can put it back to other things. And for those that are using my affiliate link, thank you so much. It's incredibly kind, generous to take that little bit of extra time just to sort of ask me to put something back in the channel. And I've actually had a few people asking me for specific affiliate links. So absolutely fine. Just message me. Wherever you need to find me, just say, look, this is what I want to buy. I can't see an affiliate link, and I will create one for you. So for everybody, thank you. And obviously everyone that watches and supports the channel. Okay, I think that's probably enough preamble. Let's just jump straight over and get into the book once I finish my coffee. Okay, so here we have the front cover, which I've said I completely and utterly judged this by its front cover, and I'm glad I did. As you can see, this sort of feudal knight here, thinking medieval stuff. This is going to be right on my street, post-apocalyptic stuff. I kind of see this world, and don't judge the book on this, please. But when Rey is going around Jeddah, she lives on that. It's like a sand planet. It's basically Tatooine, isn't it? But I'm not judging Star Wars on this. But she then goes inside the destroyed AT-AT, and she's sort of questing around in there. That's how I kind of see this world. Not necessarily the sand world, but you've got people that live in sort of hand to mouth outside, and then there's all this sort of derelict and interesting stuff and technology that no one really knows how it works anymore. So that's where I see this. I may be wrong. I'm sure Alex will let me know that whether I'm way out or not, but that's probably the way I'm going to be running this. Inside the book here, so we've got 109 pages of the book. So Machine Gods are the Noxian Expanse. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to call it Machine Gods, and it's designed and written here by Alex T. Table of contents. So we've got the basic into the background of the world, then character creation, how to play, all the way through the checks, dice usage, combat, exploring the world, gear and equipment, and then finally common threat to the Noxian Expanse, which is effectively a bestiary at the back. Throughout the book, we are going to see this sort of dispersed art world that really, say, you've got different sort of weather types here, and it all looks cold and bleak. But say you can run it where you want, and there are the rules for your grid crawling as you go along. But this just talks about really, what the world was like beforehand, which was obviously nice and wonderful. And then AI takes over, and everything goes to cack. And we are, as player characters, we are called Reclaimers. And in my head, I always go, ba la 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 la. Sorry. Every time I think Reclaim, I know it's the Proclaimers, but that's just where my head goes with this. And because you are going to walk 1,000 miles. But anyway, so this is your role. You, as players, you are Reclaimers. You are going out. You've got a natural affinity with some of the old tech, which people don't know how to understand. And you are, some people like you, some people are worried about you, they're sort of apprehensive towards you. And you're also going to be paid to go and reclaim magical items, magical artifacts, investigate things. So as a games master or a solo player, if you're going to do this, you're completely free, within the creation rules as well, to just go and create that world that you want. Character creation is very easy, very simple. It's going to be familiar. You're rolling 3d6 and then just adding them together and then assigning them. But most importantly, you're looking at these modifiers here. So this should be very familiar to anyone that's 5e, old school players. Character creation, the steps, roll attributes, assign your health, defense rating, and initiative. These are static things based on attributes. Pick a weapon, pick an armor proficiency. Anything else you're not proficient in, you're going to roll at a disadvantage. Pick one feat. You can take an optional 1 or 2 drawbacks to get additional feats. You can then optionally determine your character traits and motivation, and then pick your gear. I think you should ignore that optional bit. Encourage the players, or especially if you're going to be running it solo, to do it, to roll for those character traits. So the attributes are strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, presence. The only sort of skew-if one is presence, but it's charisma. It's exact. So, it's like any of the old school stuff, all 6 stats of these should look the same. But if you're not, and you're coming at this and you've never sort of played any of those games, including Shadow Dark, strength is your ability for physical fitness and, carrying things, punching, fighting. Constitution, your hardiness, your ability to take damage, resist poison. Dexterity, sort of dodging around, jumping through things, climbing, picking locks, shooting bows. Intelligence, how bright you are. Willpower, your mental sort of constitution, and also your ability to cast spells, because there are spells in this game. And then presence, your ability to interact with people and charm people. We've then got a few other things like character capacity, defense rating, so there's no armor class, it's defense rating, and that is how hard you are to hit. You can add this to your dexterity modifier, and it starts with your dexterity modifier, and then you can add armor onto it as well. Drawbacks, sort of like a disadvantage your character will have. A feat, you pick one. Your health is 2 times your constitution, that's your number of hit points. Initiative is based on your dexterity. And then say you're going to have these armor and weapon proficiencies, and if what you pick up and find that you're not proficient in, you're going to be rolling at disadvantage. So that will be taking 2d20 and picking the least favourable result on those dice. Feats, these are sort of game-changing constant abilities or powers that the players are going to have. So actually some of them are situational. Things like Precision Warrior, so when in combat you score a critical with a 19 or 20. So you can move from 5 to 10% of all attacks. Not that I'm saying that was the favourite or the one that I specifically picked. You can then have drawbacks to gain additional feats. You're going to get 1 feat to start with. You can take up to 2 drawbacks or roll them and take additional feats. Be careful if you're going to go with drawbacks, because one of them here is missing an eye. Roll that twice. Some of them are, they're all going to be difficult. Things like, healing slower, ignorant. You don't really know, you're disadvantaged on intelligence checks. You don't really know what's going on in the world. Arrogant, clumsy. But yeah, I didn't take a drawback because I kind of wanted to play a character without that to start with, but you can take up to 2 of those and then get totally 3 feats. We've got some random tables here for names, your background, where you're from, and any sort of vices that your characters might have, and then the motivation to reason to go out in the world. Again, I like these because not all players, especially because it's a world you don't recognise or understand necessarily as a player, it's just, a reason to actually get out there in the world and get adventure in. Well, obviously, or even one of the reasons you became a reclaimer, you then going to have some rations and some starting money to go and buy equipment. Okay, so money in categorical terms is kifol. I think that's how that's pronounced. So it's like a digital currency in the world. Experience-wise, this is a level-based game. So as you earn more experience, and you will earn experience, I think it's 1 to 2 per session. You can then earn 1 for each grid that you discover, and killing things earns experience too. 50 experience to the first level. Second level then is 100 plus the level, double the level. So you're going to go to 104, 106, 108. So that's not 2 per level. Every time you go up a level, it's going to reset. So you're going to need 50 initially, then 104. I don't know why it doubles and then only increases by 1. I generally don't know that. It seems a bit strange that you can get to 2 quickly and then everything else slows down, but that's what it is. Every time you level up, you're going to get 5 development points, and development points will be spent to increase your health, gain additional feats, proficiency, increase your attributes, or you can cultivate development points. Gives you a random chance to get more points quicker. Earning XP, so we've covered that. Yeah, it's 2 per session, 1 XP per square travelled, plus then your monsters that you kill. And here's a monster creature. I don't know whether this is one of the gods or just a random, well, not random creature from the back, but we're then going to get into checks. Target numbers is what you're looking for. You're rolling a d20, add in the attribute that's relevant to it, and you're looking at, if it's an easy check, you're looking to get to 10. So d20, you've got +2 in it, and you're going to need to roll an 8 or more. That's the standard way of playing. And then it talks about a dynamic target numbers, which is more of a way of leveling up the game as you go along, which is important once we get to the creatures in the back of the book, because their stats will be things like average, hard, very hard. So you're going to want to print this page off and have it with you, because you're going to need to refer back to this quite a lot. And what this means is if let's say it's an easy check and the attribute that you're rolling is +4, that means the player's going to need a 13 or more. Okay. But if you want to make it a hard check, they're going to need a 17 or more. And what this means is as your attributes go up, then you can actually increase the difficulty of the game alongside the players. And so this really is more important when you come to players. There are also certain things that'll happen which will switch these up or down. So you might find it becomes an easier check. So let's say it's average, but it says a -1. I think they're called steps, or no, shift. That's it. They're called shifts. Just look at the opposite page. The answer's there. And you might shift it down so because it's easy. And that might be because you've got, a better scope or something along those lines. Or it might be more difficult. So it does say to shift it up. And that comes in, there's definitely the 2-weapon fighting. You can fight with 2 weapons at one time, hence the title, 2-weapon fighting. But you just shift up the difficulty by 1. So normally that's going to increase the target number to hit +2, but you will do additional damage. Advantage and disadvantage, so things like gears. And so if you played any sort of, well, most games, let's just explain it. Advantage, disadvantage, if you've got a positive, something positive is going to affect the dice rolls. For example, you've got, good gear, it's nice weather, you can see further. You might get to roll 2d20 and pick the most favourable of the results. You might have disadvantages, heavy rain, sleet, because there are weather tables in this as well, which is fantastic. That you roll the 2d20 and you're picking the worst. There is critical failures and critical successes. They're not automatic passes and automatic failures. A 1, you're normally going to fail on a 1 and pass on a 20, but it says you give the most favourable consequence or the most favourable outcome or least favourable outcome. So, you know, if you're negotiating with a king and you basically roll a 20, that doesn't mean he's going to hand over his you know, kingdom to you, or just give you his daughter's hand in marriage. It probably means he's not going to kill you for being a cheeky git. Opposed checks, just rolling against each other, but the Games Master rolls everything in here, so you're going to roll for the player and for the monsters. And whoever's got, if it's a tie, you go to highest attribute. Can help each other out on checks, so if it's a, you know, you can help someone pick a lock or look for something, you can turn that into advantage. Uses dice. I've only just stumbled across this rule recently in my Shadowdark campaign, and everyone's like, how do you not know what this is? But this is, it's an abstract way of determining how many times an item is going to be used. More often than not, this will be the magic items that you find. Or batteries to run magic items and things. But so what you'll start with is D20. You might start with a D12, but you're going to roll every time you use the item. You're going to roll, and if you roll a 1 or 2, you roll that dice down to the next face. So you swap the dice. Sorry, you go from a D10 to a D8 to a D6 to a D4. So as you can see, if you're rolling a D10, you've got a 20% chance of it depleting. So 80% of the time, it won't actually go down. So if you roll a 6, you keep rolling that D10, and you will keep rolling that D10 forever. Once you roll a 1 or 2, you're going to roll it down to a D8. So you've then got a 33% chance of it depleting. Once you get to a D4, it's 50-50. Great little mechanic. Obviously, you're going to need to keep little dice around on your character sheets and stuff, but absolutely fine. Combat is broken down into turns. If you're surprised, the person doesn't actually you get to go a whole round beforehand. Combat rounds last about 10 seconds. There is this initiative roll here. So if you roll a 1 on your initiative, you're going to lose that first turn. So it's basically like being surprised. If you roll a 20, you're going to get your first attack with advantage. There are 3 ranges. So they are abstract here. So you've got melee range, nearby, far away. Nearby seems to be round about 30 feet, and then far away. It's everything else. Shadowdark does something similar to this. I'm becoming used to it. I've always worked in absolute ranges, which, again, want to go rules light. I think it makes perfect sense to do this. On your turn, you're going to get 1 free action, 1 move action, and 1 standard action. Standard actions are things like attack, maneuver, spells, disengage. But what the maneuvers are, so you can do things like charging. So that still will be an attack, but you will do something before the attack, if that makes sense. And then that will do something specific. And you can things like arm, grapple, etc. And your free actions are, you know, talking, dropping an item, swapping weapons, things like that. And one of the standard actions you can do is move, so you could theoretically do a double move if needs be. To attack something, you roll a d20 and you're looking to get higher than their defense rating. When an NPC or monsters, it's turned to attack, they don't roll any dice, so hence the reason why you can play this solo. So instead, the PC rolls a d20 plus their DR, which is their defense rating, which might include armor, and compares to the attacker's value. If the result is equal to or higher than the attacker's value, they've managed to avoid the attack. So roll high for you to attack when they're attacking you, rolling under. A variety of things happen with critical hits, things like double damage, and if you're rolling ones, you could deplete damage, drop your weapons, trip over, things like that. Dual wielding's there. Unarmed combat rules are in here. Death and healing. It's quite severe. Once your monster reaches 0 health, they're dead. You can do, a character can make a hard intelligence check to attempt to heal themselves or another creature. And you're going to get a d4 health back if successful. We've got some conditions here and how you solve them. So things like if you're bleeding, you can cauterize the wound. If you're blinded, it's going to wear off after a d4 number of rounds. You know, burning, fatigue, poison, prone, etc. Renaissance is the spell ability, so it's your ability to cast spells in this. And a lot of the spells are going to come from relics, which are kind of magic items. To cast spells, you're going to need to roll against your wisdom, and you're looking to achieve, obviously, well, depending on the difficulty of the spell. So there are 20 spells in the game, and you can randomly roll when you're finding relics. For the players, they're going to need to make an intelligence check to identify what the spell is. But for example, let's just pick on Breathe Water here, target number 12. So you're going to need to roll over 12. Gives you a little bit of italics, which is how the spell's going to manifest, what happens. And the user can breathe underwater as if it were oxygen for the next 30 minutes. So we've got 20 of these. Hopefully we'll get more as expansions go on. There is an expansion that I have bought at the same time, but I haven't actually read it yet. So I've been too busy learning this and playing with this. Starvation and fatigue, but the expansion rule will come at some stage because it is good. I do really like this. We're then getting how to play without a games master, and this is technically your games master section or solo section. And I'm going to do a separate video on this because I really like how this works. And what I want to try and do is use my top-down camera and sort of set up a little scenario like I've seen other people do. And then I can take you through how it's going to work. In my mind, it's easy, but I don't know logistically how I can get it to work. But what I'll do is I'll summarize this section. So we've got establishing the scene and roll a twist. So this is sort of building the scene, and then something obviously twisty might be happening. Answer any questions, then use the normal games rules and mechanics to resolve the situation, and then you can add sort of story arcs, add or remove characters, etc. But it will then talk about yes or no and likely outcomes, and will the guard turn around and come this way? So you're then going to roll a d20. If you've been quite quiet and pass, you might make this d20 a 14 or higher roll. Have you failed your stealth check, tripped over talking to someone else, already fired a round off, then it might be an 8 or 6. You're then going to roll d6 for any sort of complication that might happen, but you can just do a d6 here on a simple yes or no as opposed to doing the oracle questions. Surprise events here, so these are things that can change the scene, and it just sort of breaks down little more descriptions like is it a physical environment, a knowledge check, etc. And then you're going to update the story. We've then got other tables for other actions and things that can go on, and a lot of these are D100, so we've got a D100 for an action that can happen within the scene. The theme of the scene itself. Is there anything else interesting? Because not always when you roll something like like danger, or the NPC might be angry, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to come your way. We've then got random action resolution. So if you ever need to just randomly determine an action's outcome without an attribute or a skill check, just roll a d20 and see what happens. You're going to have to obviously track events by using your dice, and obviously a fair amount of writing down goes with solo. I always used to try and do solo playing in my mind, which was okay for that evening. And then you think you're going to come back the next day. You don't always. And then it might be a week later and I don't really know what's happened. So yeah, do write these down. Reactions for NPCs can vary from anywhere from hostile to helpful. And then you've got a few things, based on the player character that, your character will be, that may influence it. Characters' reactions, how they're going to act. Random tables here for gender and age. NPCs' motivations, descriptors, their nature, what are they doing at the time, and enemy combat action. So that's how you do your random encounters. Then if you want to flesh the world out, the next section is exploring the expanse. So it's going to talk about the civilization and then give you this grid. Okay, so this grid is included if you buy the PDF copy. Well, I suppose you could just buy the physical copy, but I wouldn't, because the physical copy, you can buy the PDF for the same price. So you should have the PDF copy, because then you're going to get the grids in here. But it just talks through the wasteland that's out there, and you can see from this image, it's not quite, as the snowy, the sandy place that I sort of described with Jeddah. That's more in my mind of, how quickly the world can change into the technology. Weather is going to dramatically change things that go on. And then exploring the world. So at times the players may roll to explore. You're then going to, in every 24 hours, you're going to get 2 exploration actions. To do an adjacent square takes 1 exploration action. As soon as you enter the square, you must roll an exploration event. Exploring and interacting in the square features takes 1 action. You can forage, hunt in there. At the end of the day, you've got to set yourself to camp for the evening. And there's a d20 here for random points of interest. This annoys me. I just do not like sideways tables. I know, turn the head like that. But I've got the physical book coming. It hasn't arrived yet, so it's not too bad if you've got a physical book. PDFs, books that I absolutely hate these sideways tables. But this is just helping, giving you an idea of terrain that's going on in here. And then we've got the weather table, which says a D20 for weather. Anything from light rain to drizzle to breezy. And some of them might have effects. So heat wave, you're going to do a hard con check to avoid becoming fatigued. D100 for landmarks, D100 for land descriptors on here. Any sort of events that's going on, you might have hazards in here. And then you've got encounters for outdoors as well. If you find a settlement, I love the fact that it does include names, because naming things it's one of the hardest parts for me of interesting names. And this, so here we've got a deep moor. Nice and simple there. How do they feel about strangers? Anywhere from kill on sight to you're welcome. The size of the hamlet, the government type, task, main industry, things that you might be asked to do when you're there, and then NPC encounters, the type of NPCs that you might meet. So Lady Blackspire, a noble, secretly funding expeditions. Exploring runes. This is dungeon crawling, effectively, and it teaches you how to map the rooms. The UD is the space or size of the room that's in here, and it's going to tell you whether it's a small, medium, or large as you're going through. I probably should just explain the table here. So you're going to enter the room, and you find out the size and condition, which is here. You'll then determine the area, whether it's going to be a room or a corridor. If it's a room, you roll the contents of the room and use the details of the room. You determine the number of exits by rolling a d4. Each time you enter a new area, you're then going to roll it to find out any encounters that are in there. If there's no encounters and you enter the room, roll on the rune event table, and then you can search it as well to try and scavenge any items. This will just take you through the special events, the room contents, the room details that's in here, the theme of the room, and then any sort of, whether there's any security systems, alarms in there, if you've rolled on the tables for alarms, room features in here, special features, the encounter, and then a specific rune event, which gravity nullifies like a bubble-like zone. Float to the ceiling. Those two sections are really easy and simple to do. There's a lot of tables, and I've been running this off the PDF, which is why I'm quite glad that I took a punt to buy a physical copy. I don't always do this, but I don't know why I was just suddenly drawn. I went, I want this. I'm going to buy the physical copy, and I'm glad I did. It was a good punt for me on this one. Encumbrance. I don't really like encumbrance rules, but in the last year or so, especially playing a lot of Shadow Dark and Horde Wars Advance, I'm now starting to stick to encumbrance. It's become quite important because it's about managing resources and potentially dying of starvation and not being able to see in the dark. It brings on a lot more stresses that I think, because of years of playing 5th edition where everyone's got a bag of holding, you stop worrying about it. So everyone can carry 5 million gold pieces. So we've got common gear and services in this event. So we've got costs and the weight, and then any additional things like a backpack's going to give you an extra 10 slots. Then into weapons, the range of the weapons, the amount of damage it does. We've got keywords weapon properties, as you'd expect here. So a finesse weapon, you can use strength or dex. A simple weapon, you don't need proficiency. So if you do find a club and you're not proficient in club, then you can still use it without rolling at disadvantage. Some weapons are slow, so you're going to hit right at the end of the round. Some are 2 weapons, and you can do additional damage with weapons. And others are versatile, which you can do it 1 or 2-handed. And if you go 2-handed, you will do a little bit of extra damage. But then got the ammo in here, so arrows, bolts, and obviously don't forget you're going to be using your usage dice when you buy sets of these. Armor, the DR bonus, so this is going to add to your dex. So if you've got a dex of +2, for argument's sake, you could actually go all the way up to full plate if you had 8,000, but obviously that's going to give you a maximum of +7 to your DR, and they all, weirdly, add up to +7. I panicked then. I was like, they did when I went through it first time. But some of them might give you disadvantage on stealth checks. None of them give you disadvantage on swimming, so it's cool. You can swim in full plate. That's, again, just used to other systems. And then you can obviously get helmets and things like that, as well as shields are going to add to your DR. So you can get up to around about 18 or 19, which is going to make it's going to be quite difficult for a lot of creatures to hit you. Spoils of War scavenging here, and there's sort of random weapon tables, random armor and gear, as well as we then get a variety of magical items. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it. When you're casting your spells, you find in the resonance stage, I always struggle with that word, that you find some sort of battery that allows you to power the spells themselves. And what actually happens is you will then roll that dice every time you're casting a spell. If you fail, you still potentially deplete the battery out. I knew as I was going through this that I hadn't mentioned something. So here's some random items. And then we get finally common threats of the Noxian Expanse. These are creatures. And it's just going to break down here. It's about 20 pages of creatures. There's no images from what I remember. He's just saying that, just going on, just, yeah, from what I remember. But you do get descriptors in here, and I'll explain the stats here. But it does break it down. So attack, obviously, is how well they attack. Defense rating, constitution. So they can have all the stats. Health is how many hit points. Initiative is when it's going to go. The loot you're going to get from it. The number is how many there are of them. Perception, how good they are spotting things, and all their stats. And then the type, which might be relevant to a spell along those lines. So I'm going to pick on something I haven't actually looked at. Let's go for the Demented Clone. A recently awakened clone that's fallen into madness. So it's got 4 health, and it's easy on the check. So this is where you're going to be comparing the attribute to determine back on that table. So all these creatures don't actually have specific stats for things like the defense rating and their attack and strength and willpower, because they're going to level up with the player. And I like that. It does make it slightly slower to work out, because sometimes you can actually might just want a number in there for speed. But as a general rule, roll on d20 to get over a certain amount for the defense. And if it's easy, that's normally going to be, a standard. So it's going to be around about 14 as a general rule for a roll. And they're going to be rolling under 14 to hit. Obviously, well, depending on what your DR is. So if your DR could be up to about 1920. So this is going to struggle to hit, which is it's quite nice, because I've picked on something that's rather weak to go. So let's just pick something. Ooh, is there anything with very hard as we just go through? So plague bearers, raiders, they're up to average. Revenant, a dead human remains. Rush Shambler. You kind of want it to. Oh, it does. I was talking about this the other day about rust monsters, how they don't. They used to be a big thing in Dungeons and Dragons. An animated mass of corroded metal and synthetic flesh. This has got a special corrosive attack. Engaged. The target suffers 1 damage round down for that. It is cumulative. Oh no, it doesn't destroy armor. Okay, not too bad. Here's a hard attack here. A Storm Herald. An augmented human wrapped in perpetual nanite lightning. Oh man, that's going to do lightning damage, isn't it, as you get near it? Yeah, special attack, lightning bolt. If the target must pass an average con check or become stunned. Oh dear. And then we've got finally the table of contents at the back. Hey, what do I think? What do I think? I don't know why I do this. I get to the end and go, what do I think? Well, I think I like it because I've bigged it up throughout the whole book. It's bloody ace. I say the world itself is really interesting. I've got the expansion, but obviously I'm judging this on just on this book. And I was absolutely blown away just how easy it is to create a world. When I sort of looked, my initial reaction was, oh, I've got to roll for them to attack me. And then it's like, of course you have. It's a solo game. A person that isn't there can't roll for a creature that I'm fighting. And once I wrapped my head around that little wriggle, because I don't know why I was expecting it not to be anything like that, because I have played a few solo games and I'm not a complete idiot, that I was like, okay, this is great. So when I roll, I'm rolling above. When they're rolling to hit me, rolling above is good, which means they miss. But I can then go out and just randomly create the world off the grid. The rules are very good. So I want to run this grid world for Shadowdark, and I know I talk about Shadowdark a fair amount because I play it a lot, and I don't mean to sort of diss this game and this setting and these rules, but I think if I can get this to work for Shadowdark, it means I can then get it to work for Call of Cthulhu and other things like that. So once I've sort of wrapped my head around a nice, easy solo rules with lots of tables, that without too many tables, I can start soloing more games that I want to play to try out, but also means I can play games that I haven't played for a long time. And that is really good. I was really surprised just how good and creative the rule system are. It is really deep but light, if that makes sense. I know that it sounds like a really stupid thing to say, that there's a lot of depth to it, but it is that there's so much coming out of these tables that are in here, that it just makes the game really, really random to be interesting enough. I'm doing a lot of writing when I'm going through this, which again is good, because it just means when I run this for players, if I don't want to do the whole random creation stuff, I've kind of built in my world out. The layout of the book is really good. It was actually a joy to read, and I don't get this very often. You know, I remember talking about Tales of Argosa just being sort of bam, read through 200 odd pages. I did exactly the same with this, so I'm expecting exactly the same from the expansion when I get into it. So I haven't read the expansion deliberately because I wanted to review this book purely based on what's in the book. So character creation is nice and fast. I haven't died yet, but when you do die, because it's going to happen, because there's no set ratings for the creatures, so I'm going to have to experiment a little bit with that. And you know, there are rules for disengaging and running away, so don't be scared to run off to fight. And I haven't really gone with the drawbacks yet, because I say the blindness one terrifies me. I don't mind having one eye, kind of. It's still going to affect you, but the chances of having two eyes so I can be, it's simple. It's old school. It's brutal. You get to 0 health, you're going to die. You can run this, said at the outset, you can run this solo. You can run this co-op. So you can run, well, you can even do solo and co-op and have multiple characters. Haven't tried that yet. You can run this with your friends, and you can actually run it as a proper games master and build the world out. It's a really exciting, interesting world. Based on where the world is going at this moment in time, I'm really sort of like, I can see this happening. I know everyone thinks that we're crazy about AI taking over, but I don't know. There was a film in, was it 91? Starring Arnie. Didn't go too well. Was it 92? Might be 90. I think it might be January 92. Anyway, sidetracked. But Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse is absolutely amazing. So glad I just took an absolute punt on it, and I'm glad I even leveled up, so to speak, to get the physical copy, because once I've got the physical copy, I think I'm going to play this a lot more, a lot quicker. I can even then say I'm going to get into play other games. What I want now is more spells. The downside, obviously, only 20 spells is a little bit, want more. 20 is still a lot, but if you're going into a longer campaign, you're going to want a few more. That sideways table, hardly a grumble when you've got physical books. But yeah, I just now need more, and I've got the book coming for more. So hopefully I'll be back very soon with an expansion review. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you're going to buy it, please do consider using my affiliate link, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.